Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to Coffee and Headlines. This would be our daily get-together every morning, 10:30, live on Facebook, and then available on YouTube during the day. We get together to talk about the latest headlines and stories that we come across and how they relate to our lives as English-speaking people living in Puerto Vallarta. We get a lot of people that tune in from other places, mostly locals or people that are considering moving here permanently. And sometimes we get the occasional adventurous tourist who's planning on visiting and maybe can get something useful out of our conversations here. But for the most part, it's usually those of us that live here full time and try to make sense out of our lives as local English speaking residents. If you're new to these broadcasts, my name is Paco, and we'd love to know that you're new. So feel free to write the word new in a comment so that we can welcome you accordingly. We'd love to know where you're from, how you heard about Coffee and Headlines. And if you have any specific questions or comments that you'd like for us to address in one way or another, please write the letter Q before your question so that we can take a look at it either during the live broadcast or I will be happy to take a look at it later on today. Let me take a quick look at some comments from people that are always here. It's always lovely to say hello to you. I see Sly is in the house. Debbie sent me the funniest story about combis. Yesterday, we talked about those minivans that Volkswagen makes, and in Mexico, they're called combis. Combi would be the singular of it. Well, apparently Debbie used to have one or rented one or somehow used one, and for the longest time, apparently, she thought that they were called Gumby with a G, and I thought that was really funny. Debbie, you made me laugh when I read through that. Margaret is in the house. Jules is in the house. All kinds of wonderful people are in the house. Good morning, Christine. Thank you very much for your good wishes, and everybody else. Living, loving life in PV. That's wonderful. It is great to see all these wonderful people that join us on a regular basis. Robert, I hope this is something that you can address. I know that if other people could not see the video, I would see all kinds of messages to that effect. So hopefully this is something that maybe restarting your computer or your device can help. And we see a fairly new person. I am so glad that you are joining us this morning. And it's great to see my little sister Noi joining us from Thailand. Noi has been doing all kinds of wonderful culinary videos from her homeland, and we've talked about her before. If you want to get more information about that, I'm sure that Noi would love to flash her YouTube page for us to enjoy. Joe asks, how is the zoo faring and the animals with less tourists? Actually, I don't know, Joe, but I certainly hope that they are well cared for as they should be. Let me take a quick look. Logan's going to be busy today welcoming a big family to Villa Lola. This is the one of the many small villas that you can enjoy a quality vacation at. So hopefully this will be a successful adventure for you. I'm glad to see that. I'm glad to see that business is picking up for you. Gigi claims that um, there's going to be there's going to be further action towards the thief in the combi. The only way to find out if this is rumor or true is to share the source of information. If this is something that you heard from a friend who heard it from a friend who heard it from a friend who read it on Facebook, it's probably not true. But Gigi, if you have a good source of information for this, just share it with us and let us know what it is so we can take a look at it and enjoy it with the whole community. Today, for a change, we start with spectacularly good news for Mexico. And then we move on to our regular COVID 19, this, that, and the other, a couple of other interesting news. Yesterday, we talked about Tapalpa, one of the small magical towns in our state, going into curfew, and now that's not going to happen. But it's interesting to see why not or how that story is going to develop. We run into more interesting things to watch on television today. And it's all good. It's all good here in Puerto Vallarta. Let me get started with news because we have a few of them, and then I'll keep my eyes open on your comments and your questions. Drum roll on this one, because the good news is that the state of Oaxaca has now made it illegal for children to purchase junk food and to purchase carbonated beverages like Coke and Pepsi and so forth and so on. This is absolutely unprecedented in Mexico. The state of Oaxaca is in that part of Mexico where the problems with diabetes and obesity and so forth and so on that afflict people for excessive consumption of junk food is at its worst. So Oaxaca became the first state that forbids the sale of carbonated beverages with sugar, and that forbids the sale of potato chips and things like that. This was approved by Congress and is now the state Congress and is now in the process of going into law. It's important to note that this will become part of the law of rights for children and teenagers in the state. We don't know if and when this is going to be extended to other states in Mexico, but this is a major milestone in our country's oh dear, what's the word I'm looking for? It's a major milestone in our country's crusade for public health. Yeah, I cannot think of a better word than crusade. This was, of course, cheered by Hugo Lopez Gatell in his latest conference, and he was very happy to see this. He's gotten himself in hot water before for mentioning that Coke and other beverages that are carbonated are junk food. He was quoted by saying, one thing is to create the law, and another thing is to make the law be followed to the T. He further said, I think that there are no better watch people or vigilantes than the citizens themselves. If the citizens are aware of the damage that these types of products can cause on one's health and how vulnerable children and teenagers are, surely there will be a much more prominent attention to the fact that this law should be followed, and any other law that protects vulnerable population such as children. Of course, the different associations that represent chambers of this, chambers of that, and chambers of other quickly spoke out that this will affect the economy in many, many different areas. The Chamber of Businesses, the Coparmex, spoke out. The Chamber of the Restaurant Industry, the Chamber of bread makers, the Chamber of Small Businesses, the Chamber of Supermarkets, and the National Association of manufacturers of carbonated beverages, of course, they all felt their feathers ruffled, and now they're saying, well, this is going to affect everybody. But, it is a good thing that our country is making small steps towards bettering or improving the way we eat, and particularly in younger populations. So hopefully, this is something that is going to start happening in other states, and hopefully, this is something that will continue to nurture, no pun intended, our ways when it comes to how we choose what we eat. Going back now to COVID, of course, Hugo Lopez Gatell has indicated that 7 Mexican states have increasing numbers of COVID. For a change, it's nice to see that Jalisco is not one of them, but I am afraid that Nayarit is. The 7 states that are reporting an increase in COVID cases, or a tendency to increase, are Baja California Sur, Colima, Hidalgo, Guanajuato, Nayarit, Yucatan, and Zacatecas. Mexico's government, the tourism secretary, is planning a teleconference with representatives of the cruise industries to try to land a deal so that the first cruise ships that begin operating will come to Mexico. This is something that is important to our economy, of course, because, for example, this article mentions that during 2019, Mexico welcomed 2,951 cruise ships with almost 9 million passengers that docked at one of 27 destinations that we have in our country, including Puerto Vallarta, Mazatlan, Los Cabos, and Ensenada, and so forth and so on. Needless to say, we hear cruise ships and we shiver thinking, all those people, what's going on? But I would like to believe that the cruise industry is not intentionally planning on creating these floating manufacturing plants of COVID or other diseases. I would hope to believe that the cruise industry is taking very small steps and careful steps in the right direction, so that if and when the cruise ships come back to Mexico, and particularly to Puerto Vallarta, that this will be handled in the most responsible way. Yesterday, we talked about Tapalpa, this municipality and magical town in the state of Jalisco, where the mayor called for curfew, preventing people from being out and about after 9 p.m. in order to decrease the number of cases, of COVID-19 cases. And even our governor, Enrique Alfaro, was quoted in saying that he supported this notion. Of course, this is a notion that was, or a determination that was made by the municipality itself. And the governor said, well, each mayor is free to increase the number of safety measures without any problem. But of course, then the mayor of Tapalpa changed her mind. She decided, no, we're not going to have curfew. And there is an important and interesting reason why she did this. And in a video, she stated that she explained that this is a measure in which, for a period of 15 days, businesses, bars, and public spaces will close at 9 p.m. And at no moment did we mean that people would not be able to go about their business on their own. We would never want to suspend the garantías individuales. And what are garantías individuales? I believe this would be the Spanish or Mexican equivalent of civil rights in English or in the States, for example. I don't know about other constitutions, and I went to read about this, and I thought, well, this must be interesting because why is she referring to civil rights? Well, in Mexico, our Constitution starts with something that we call the garantías individuales, or civil rights. And it's the first articles that include things like, for example, Article 2 says that slavery is forbidden. Um, Article 3 says that teaching, learning, education is free, um, and it has to be devoid of religious implications. So much for all the religious schools in the country. Um, Article 4 says that nobody can um, forbid anyone from having whatever job they want to have as long as the job is legal. Um, there's an article here. Article 7 says that it's talks about the freedom of writing and speaking about anything you want in Mexico. There's one about firearms. Article 10 is about Mexico has the liberty of people to own any kind of firearms for their own defense. I'm not so crazy about that. But it is Article 9 that might be troublesome for Tapalpa or other type of instances where somebody might say, well, we're going to go into curfew, because Article 9 says that you cannot take away the right for people to get together or gather peacefully anywhere as long as their goal is legal. So for Tapalpa to say, well, you cannot go out and about, it would contradict the very, very basic civil rights that are written on the Mexican Constitution. So somebody must have warned Tapalpa about this. So Tapalpa mayor, she decided, whoops, we don't want to go there, but we will institute some measures that will help us continue to prevent this. Before I move on to Placido Domingo, let me take a quick look to see if there are any important questions here. Boom, 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 boom. Yay, another newbie. It's great to see you, Bev. I hope you find what you're looking for. And when it's time for you to return, I hope that you return in the safest way possible. Thank you, Noi, for sharing your YouTube channel for people to learn more about wonderful Thai cuisine and all kinds of wonderful things that you're up to. Comments about Oaxaca. This is really great. Does Coke O actually have no sugar? I am sure, Sly, that if you go onto Coca-Cola's website, you'll find the answer to your question. But it's a really good question. We know for a fact that a lot of these products are made with all kinds of things, and we've seen a gazillion documentaries that speak about the truth of what we eat. And I know that our friend Candace Shaw would probably point us in the right direction if we wanted to really take a close look at what it is that we consume. By the way, she recommended Cowspiracy, a documentary that is on Netflix. And although the title of this documentary is absolutely horrible, Cowspiracy sounds like some kind of vegan plot to conquer the world. And it is not. It's actually a very important documentary about what happens with all the poop that cows produce, and how cow poop has as much to do with global warming and the pollution in our environment than cars do. So it is really, really fascinating to see all these things. Felix Sanchez answers the question, and that pretty much goes along the same lines of what I was talking about. And we're up to speed, so I'm going to continue with the news, and I'm going to talk about Placido Domingo now, because we know Placido Domingo. We know he's a very famous tenor. We tend to think that he's Mexican, but he's not, although he's made Mexico his home. He was born in Spain. He has a glorious voice. We've loved him for the longest time. He is one of the original four tenors, and he's obviously known as a talented musician, opera conductor, event organizer. There is a beautiful theater with his name in Guadalajara City. Well, in August 2019, Placido Domingo was accused by multiple women of sexual harassment. And the following month, the Metropolitan Opera Company decided that it would be ending their relationship with Placido Domingo in light of those allegations. And then early this year, Placido Domingo, it was in February actually, he apologized for causing hurt to several women that accused him. And apparently then went on to say, well, when I apologized, people assumed that I was acknowledging how I had actually done these things, which didn't help his credibility. And subsequently, an investigation led by the Los Angeles Opera concluded on March of this year that the claims leveled against Placido Domingo were credible. Well, Placido Domingo went and unfortunately he had COVID, and and when Placido Domingo got COVID, he promised that if I get over this, I will spend the rest of my living days cleaning my name. And now Placido Domingo has recovered from COVID 19. And he has his voice with him. He thought he would lose it. And now he is back in the spotlight saying, I never abused anyone, and making sure that he cleans his name. And apparently, this is going to be his big mission moving forward. In a way, I think this is interesting or important news. In another way, I think it's actually funny. Well, not funny, but when we talk about specific people having COVID and recovering from it, I wonder if in 3 years from now we will still be dealing with COVID, and we are not going to be talking about who has it or who doesn't have it. Just as today, we don't talk about who catches a cold or who doesn't catch a cold, but we can only wait and see what is going to happen. And that is pretty much a good segue for our more leisurely news. I see your comments about methane and cow farts. I love it. Yes, I think that's exactly what goes on. And now that we're slowly sliding into the methane cow fart environment, let us switch over to the news and some lighter stories that I want to share with you. Okay, let's start with our weather as usual. It is 28 degrees Celsius. It feels a lot hotter. It feels 35 because humidity is at a whopping 93%. It is 82 degrees Fahrenheit. There's a 10% chance of rain right now, and hopefully we will get some. And if we get some, hopefully it'll rain with enthusiasm. The weather forecast for today: rain and humid throughout the day. Tomorrow it'll be humid and mostly cloudy throughout the day, and on Saturday we will get rain in the evening and overnight. I really do hope it continues to rain. Now, I want to tell you about some of the things that I've been up to. First of all, I had a wonderful walking adventure down the streets of Versailles, and I put together a nice little video that I've called Versailles Part 1, and I'm going to share that with you in a few days. I still don't know if this is going to be part of what I'm going to put together for a day in which I want to take the day off, or if I'm just going to share this with you because it is fun, and just walking around Versailles, even though it was really, really warm, it was just great to see all the shops that are going on. I knew you were an opera singer, Michael Young, and I have a hunch that we're going to be very good friends once you and your husband move to Puerto Vallarta. I look forward to learning more about the things that you're doing and figuring out how you're going to use your talent as a singer to become part of the fabric here in Puerto Vallarta. That's one of the wonderful things about moving to our destination to live here full time, is that there are all kinds of wonderful opportunities for us to reinvent ourselves if we choose to do so, and if we choose to take off the clothes that represent our adherence to other cultures in other countries. And we've had this conversation. We talked about this at length on our Sunday Fun Day when we were talking about what it's really like to live here. You kind of want to undress of your traditions and expectations and habits and beliefs from other places and pretty much marry what we have here. And it's a lot easier. It's a lot easier to get by. The one first headline that I want to share with you has to do with streaming, theater streaming. And this is not something that I'm sharing because I'm expecting you to watch, but I'm sharing because it shows how Mexican actors, theater, stage people are trying to reinvent themselves it through the pandemic. If I mention names like Arat de la Torre, Crisanta Gomez, or Ignacio Lopez Tarso, or Julio Bracho, these names may not represent anything to you. But for example, Ignacio Lopez Tarso and Julio Bracho are major Mexican stage actors. And it is really interesting to see that there are five great productions, all in Spanish, of course, all without subtitles, that are becoming available for people to enjoy at home through streaming. I won't go through the trouble of describing them because, again, this is not so much about the specific place. It is more about the fact that there are all these software companies that are now making it available for you to purchase tickets to watch these things. And they're not that expensive. I mean, this first play is 120 pesos for watching it at home. The second one is the same price, 120 pesos. The third one is 200 pesos. Ignacio Lopez Tarso, who's an amazing actor, again, his ticket is only 120 pesos. And then there's another play, which is more expensive. It goes from 180 to 280 pesos. What does that mean for us? Well, it means that now there are all these platforms that allow creators to sell their stuff, and hopefully local creators, local actors and singers and musicians here in Puerto Vallarta will also start taking advantage of these platforms. Of course, we know that a lot of people are doing live performances and they are pulling out tip jars, and but it's different. It's different when you pull a tip jar than when you actually sell a ticket ahead of time. And of course, the success or failure of these enterprises a lot of times has to do with how good is your internet, what kind of device are you. I mean, there's a lot of factors that come into play when somebody is trying to put something together like this. But it is nice to see that stage communities in Mexico are not sitting around and they're looking for ways to reinvent themselves. Power to them. In other news, I also caught this fact that Interjet is incrementing is a good word too, increasing their national flights an 88%, including 7 arrivals a week. Yes, it is per week, 7 arrivals to Puerto Vallarta. This must be from other cities like Monterrey and Mexico City, perhaps also Guadalajara. So this is part of the airline's strategy of recovery and the airline's strategy of being able to provide the infrastructure for tourists to get from one place to another. By the way, it's nice to see comments from a couple of you that are Spanish speakers about the place. And it's nice to see that at least a few people are familiar with some of these actors. So you will find the links to the broadcasts on the show notes, along with everything else that we usually share. And I know that I'm going to be trying to watch a few of these plays, if anything, to support the industry, because it's a part of the world that I definitely miss, going to live performances. Speaking of live performances, this article from the New York Times also caught my attention. Classical music attracts older audiences. Good. And then the subtitle says, especially during a pandemic, the graying of audiences has been seen as a sign of precariousness, but maybe these older listeners are a lifeline. Maybe I am a freak in this regard because I've loved classical music since I was a child, and I've never even paid attention to the fact that when I go to listen to classical music performances, I'm surrounded by people that are older than me. Even now at 58, I don't think about it, but I am very much mindful of the fact that, for better or worse, the classical music, or the notion of classical music, is something that we immediately associate with people of a certain age. So I glanced through the article, and I'll be so very happy to continue reading it, of course, because creating connections between classical music and the community that I'm a part of has been extremely important to me, as you know, some of you know, through the series of music appreciation lectures that I've offered here in Puerto Vallarta in the past. I've continued to look for um, helpful, healthy, legal ways to present these types of lectures online. And of course, because of copyright issues, it becomes very complicated. But I'm always looking for ways to connect with specific music and connect audiences with specific music. Yes, Claude, we are both. Well, are you a young pup of 58 or are you talking about me? I'm not entirely sure, but I definitely feel young. Absolutely. Now, for this next headline that I want to share with you, this, of course, appeals to the geeky science fiction geek that I am. You know, I'm a sucker for a good science fiction movie that is well written, that has a great script, that has a great screenplay, that has awesome special effects. And of course, there are not enough great productions to that effect on television and on films. And of course, now that we're in the middle of the pandemic, we don't seem to get any major productions coming our way. But my God, I just watched the trailer for this new series created by Ridley Scott for HBO, and this that's going to be available on September 3rd, and it is just fascinating. It's called Raised by Wolves, and it's going to be available on HBO Max. And the trailer is here, and it is absolutely wonderful. The brief synopsis of the show says Mother was programmed to protect everyone after Earth had been destroyed. When the big bad wolf shows up, she is the one we must trust. Of course, she would be this android creature, and of course through the trailer we get to see, well, can we trust her, or is she really the bad person or the bad creature or the evil in this series? Anyhow, if you enjoy this types of productions as much as I do, definitely take a look at this, because you'll find it fascinating, and I'd love to have people to talk about this when it is aired and we can all enjoy it together. Now, I was not going to talk about TikTok anymore, or this new application that Instagram has just launched. But of course, I've been doing some research because it's what I do for a living. I need to find out how these platforms work to see if I can take advantage of them, of either for personal reasons or for part of the business that I do doing consulting. But this headline about Donald Trump giving the ultimatum to TikTok totally made me laugh because of this word here, baneado. I mean, hello, this word doesn't even exist. Let me translate the whole headline. The whole headline says Donald Trump gives TikTok an ultimatum. They must find a buyer before September 15 or they will be banned from the United States. Baneado is so shamelessly Spanglish. It's a word that doesn't really exist. Okay, so does it exist or does it not exist? So I went and looked for the word banear, and it doesn't exist in the Royal Spanish Academy of this, that, or the other, but it is acknowledged as a term that has to do with something that is forbidden. So then I went to look at it in the English Spanish dictionary on the internet, and to ban in Spanish is to prohibit. So prohibit would have been a perfectly fine word. It also can mean to exclude, as though if you, or to expulse or to kick out. When you ban somebody from attending a restaurant or coffee and headlines, like we banned that creepy troll a few weeks ago. So there are perfectly fine words in Spanish for the word prohibit, but again, I thought it was amusing that this particular headline used the word banear. And the last headline that I have for you today has to do with this snake that was found in Palmar de Aramara. Imagine that you are about to hop on your car, and all of a sudden you find that there's a ginormous snake that is all wrangled around your wheels. so you cannot even get close to your car. Well, this happened in Palmar de Armada, where the Green Patrol had to be called in to look at the size of that sucker. It was quite ginormous, and of course they took the big snake and they released it on the Quale River, not on the Quale, on the Pitillal River. And I thought, well, that's really amazing, scary. But hey, snakes and nature and all these creatures were here before we were. So what are we to do? We have to respect these things. Let me take a look at your comments for today before we move on with the rest of our day. Uh, yes, the fabric of Puerto Vallarta is like a magical quilt of multiple colors. What a beautiful group of words put together. Absolutely. Um, a beautiful song you need to get into the rhythm of. I'm not sure what that is about, but I have news about a great song. Well, I discovered a great story yesterday. I'm just dying to share it with you guys, but I need to find out how I'm going to be able to do that efficiently. Bum, ba-ding, bum, 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 bum. Classical and jazz regularly streaming in Salt Lake City. Yes, I that sounds like my living room as well. Um, oh, good. I have an accomplice. Another Earth is Screwed movie. I love those. I tell you. Carlos asks, when am I going to make my first TikTok for my fans? Well, here's the thing, Papacito. Um, it's there's only so many channels one can watch, and I've decided I am not going to explore TikTok just yet, but maybe I'll have to because it's in the news, and I see that a lot of people learning how to use it, and maybe my clients will want me to know how to use it. So I'll do some TikTok homework this weekend, and I have promised myself that I'm going to try to learn this new Instagram feature that is kind of like TikTok. Yes, that is one scary snake, absolutely. Uh, this is an important question. Where is the best place to buy fresh fish to cook at home? Well, this all has to do with where you're located, Cliff. For example, in Cinco de Diciembre, there's a wonderful fish market. Um, in oh God, Riviera Nayarit, La Cruz in Guanacaxtla, there's another wonderful fish market. Um, and somebody confirms this fish market near the cemetery. That would be the one in Cinco de Diciembre. I believe there's another mention of that same market. So I would think that this is a good place to start. It's very Mexican, it's very traditional, so it might be an adventure for you. I'm making a note to self to maybe go drive. Oh no, I don't drive because my car is a different story. To take a visit to the fish market in Cinco de Diciembre to see what it's looking like these days. I remember a few months ago there was a big fire or something happened, and I hope that it has been rebuilt. But I'm going to go for a walk around the fish market one of these days, hopefully in the near future, so that we can see exactly what's going on there. And yes, Felix, we were talking about this new feature called Reels, and this is what I'm going to be spending some time this weekend learning. And Mihal calls the TikTok experience going through the rabbit hole. Well, I have brownies, so I can go down the rabbit hole. So we'll see how that goes. Anyhow, this is Coffee and Headlines for today. As always, I'm so grateful for your company, your comments, your questions, your suggestions, because your comments and questions and suggestions are like a great springboard for me to come up with ideas as to, what can I do? How can I connect you? How can I connect us with our destination in a better way, in a more efficient way? So this is what we do. This is what we hope to continue doing. And yes, I will share my findings about TikTok. And I agree with you, Noy. These are more of the platforms that are being used by younger communities. I don't necessarily feel comfortable using TikTok, but then again, you got to know at least a little bit about it so that you can know what other people are talking about. So hopefully we'll learn something new. And if I find something fascinating to share with you, I will share it with you in the near future. For the time being, I send big hugs out to you, especially to Claude, who just sent us all big hugs to the cluster. I love that term. Have a great Thursday. Stay healthy, stay happy, stay calm. Eat a lot of fish. It's good for you. or well, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I think Candace Shaw. You know that Candace and I are such good friends. It's like every time I put something in my mouth for food, of course, I think about her. It's like, would Candace approve or disapprove? So, Candace, you're always on my mind. I'm sending you much love and hugs. And everybody else, have an awesome day, and I will see you sometime soon. Take care.